If you're over in Red Hook, aside from cobblestones, IKEA, and that spectacular view of the Statue of Liberty, you'll also find a massive multi-purpose space offering everything from gallery exhibits to musical performances to publishing and even residencies for local artists.
Well, Pioneer Works is a nonprofit organization that its founding artistic director describes as, quote, a beacon that permits us to bring our performance program and community musicians together under one roof to enable them to collaborate and create in ways that few studios allow.
Here to show and tell us more about Pioneer Works' upcoming season and its mission to make culture available to all is that artistic director, Gabe Florenz. Welcome to BK Live.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored. I love what you do at BRIC so much. So
Great, thank you.
Mutual admiration
here.
You know,
fellow institutions.
Right. So please tell us about this idea. How did it come about? And the space came about in 2012, right?
It came about in 2012, largely as a vision that the founder Dustin Yellen had, as far as putting everything into space, as far as different disciplines, different people. The idea that poets, writers, scientists, educators all want to be next to each other, speaking to each other, with space to research and space to make their work, and then the idea that we can provide a platform for that and then get that information and content out to the world.
So I always think of this place that we're sitting now as sort of the same idea of this Star Wars outpost bar, where there's people from all these different parts of the universe that get crammed in together and make stuff. I wonder how much Red Hook is a part of that, since it is like its own little village, and what kind of character that influences on the work that comes out of Pioneer Works.
I mean, I think that you are always part of your community, and it's, I think, a real struggle to figure out how do you make sure that you don't isolate an institution from the community. And it's, to be part of gentrification, but try to figure out how can you push gentrification in the right direction and be a positive aspect of it. It's a puzzle, and we're always trying to figure out how to make our culture accessible to our community. And for us, it was starting out with, we can't charge to come into the space. We don't charge people. We have public programs, and all of our lecture programs are free and open to the public. But that is also on top of, we are a serious research facility for professionals that are selected across disciplines to be able to make their work in, a certain kind of community that is also its own. But the connection to how do you make sure Red Hook knows about what's happening, and that we're bringing people in from the community and from New York in general, it's a push and pull that we try to keep figuring out.
Yeah, walk us through some of the offerings. Who can take advantage of this opportunity?
Well, all of the like I said, the public programs and the access to the space. You can come and see the exhibitions. You can go upstairs and visit with the artists and the writers and the scientists and speak to whoever you encounter. That's all free and open. And every month we have a program called Second Sunday that is, concerts, performances, exhibition openings, all of the artists working in the studio, and it becomes like a real family environment where we have, sometimes 1,000, 1,500 people come and experience everything. So it becomes this kind of this really great hive of people.
So I'm thinking about, you guys are expanding now and you're getting into books and publishing, when I thought everything was going the way of the dodo in that industry. Like, I'm reading everything on my stupid tablet and all this jazz, but you're going the other way.
I mean, I think we're embracing the digital age, because I think it's here and it's an amazing tool. But we're also, as things become less and less, and bookstores become less and less, they become more important in a way. So the idea of a book as an object, and information being as tangible and physical, I think is really still very important to us. And we do have a bookstore in Red Hook as well, where we do public readings, and we have a curated book. We have a bookstore as well, which is, it's a good business to be in the nonprofit world in a bookstore, because it's a hard business now.
Let's hear some about your current events. We know that you have the Grand Ole Opry exhibit, which looks pretty impressive. I think we have some pictures. So what was the process for curating that?
The process for curating was it's a long process. I've been working on it for about a year and a half, and started with one of the artists, Willie Stewart, who is a resident. We give free space to these artists, and he was in the space for about 6 months. And he had a background where he was actually born into biker gang in Nashville.
Love bikes.
and he has a pretty like dark but like amazing past. And we started talking about he does these installations with his friend Brent Stewart, who came from Nashville as well, but opposite backgrounds, strict Christian upbringing, and they both connected and they build these kind of film installations together. So we started going through this idea of building this kind of existential trailer park that would serve as an activated space that would be a concert venue. And it's called the Grand Ole Opry. It's a kind of satire. Opera.
Yeah.
It's a satire on the Grand Ole Opry from Tennessee, but instead of country music, it's a venue for noise, metal, and punk shows.
Yeah.
So there's film installations, a concert venue with a revival tent over it, kind of replacing like the idea of the performer, the idea of the priest with the performer. So people come and they indulge in this soft worship, and it becomes this this installation that's you can come and see in the daytime as a normal exhibition, and you can come to concerts and be part of this this activated space.
So what's the bottom line for you guys? Like, what's the driving thought? Because you do have this weird mix of scientists and artists and performers and solitary writers and all. So what's the grand vision that we're supposed to take away as a community from the Pioneer Works experiment?
I think there's an idea of like ultimate complexity, right? Like how, like you were saying here, it's about pushing people next to each other, not forcing them to collaborate, believing that they will collaborate, and that with choosing the greatest types of people and minds in every field, and that includes educators that want to experiment in education. And you put them next to each other, we really feel like it creates a space for such rich content, and we want to be able to make that content in a conscious way, where you pay the artists and you work with the scientists to give them a space outside of their usual kind of university and more contrived settings, and really allow people to experiment, produce, and educate each other. And while we're doing that, we want to always pay attention to how do we transpose this into the community around us, and how do we create a new model for educational fields, for artistic fields, and curatorial fields, as well as scientific fields. So it's kind of like, it's one of those things, it's a little bit hard to describe. It's like trying to describe a poem sometimes. You're like, you got to read the poem. So we always are like, you got to come over, and you got to walk through, and you got to see the music studio and the radio station and the technology labs and the science studios and see the exhibition. And you can start to get a feeling of this kind of the tangibility of the projects.
Great. And you guys are a nonprofit. How can people get involved?
People can get involved by simply coming and participating in the conversation. They can get involved by donating whatever they can to the space. They can come support by attending at concerts and paying for tickets. They can buy books from our bookstore, and they can come take our classes. We have like tons of different classes all the time available to the public, and come support. We have a huge amount of community programs, and we support local Red Hook youth and job training and technology training. So I think the good thing about it is there's a lot of different kind of threads that people who want to support things can come and they can get involved, whether that be science, education, art, music, or simply just having a community physical space. Because I think that in this digital age, that's what we're missing, is like spaces where people can come,
Right.
So I think that's like something that, BRIC is doing and that we're doing, and we take a lot of different models and we mix them together. None of this is like an original, singular idea. It's all about taking in different ideas and institutions and say, how can we, get together? And I think the nonprofit community in New York City is an amazing community that has a lot to give. So it's about kind of how can we build it together and communicate more.
So in our last 30 seconds, literally, I'm going to let President number 46 infiltrate just a little bit. How are you guys prepared to go forward and move as funding for the arts becomes a little more scarce and people turn toward resistance maybe a little bit more?
Our funding structure hasn't been government or state-based that much, although we have gotten NEA grants and things like this. And so for us, it's not a huge percentage of our budget, but it is a huge fear, because I think that's where we want to go, is to get real estate support, because also we feel like it's a public program and the state should support it, and the nation should support what we're doing. And it's really hard because we work with a lot of institutions, and a lot of institutions, they're 30%, 40% of their budget is at risk. So I think this is an age where we need to come together, and I feel like we felt a lot of people that are more active right now and more engaged, and realize that cultural spaces and art is it's not one unit. All these units are connected. You know, all of these different kind of disparate nonprofits and people that are working for good, whether that be politics or music or art or community supports or social work, we're all connected. So I feel like hopefully this is going to cause people to come together more and give more and be more active, you know.
Gabe Florenz, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you so much. I really
Continue to watch
appreciate
you
it.
evolve down that Pioneer Works.
Please, you got to come by.
Right
You know,
on.
appreciate it.
Done.